Hi, it's Phyllis. Today's project is this, I'm calling it my double-strand stretch bracelet, and it's made up of all beaded beads and spacers that we create together. You can use a bunch of colors, you can use one color, you can use just 8mm beads, 10mm beads, whatever size bead you want, but I wanted to have something that's unique and all handmade. There's no metal in this, and it's a stretch bracelet. So if you like what you see, hang around for my materials list and we'll get started. The materials for today's project are 8/0 seed beads. You can use one color, two colors, 15 colors, however many colors you want, because we're making beaded beads with the 8/0 seed beads and also spacer components with the 8/0 seed beads. So you can use one color or many colors. That depends on you. I'm using also two colors of size 15/0 seed beads. I'm using the Manicure galvanized matte aluminum, and I'm using the Toho galvanized aluminum. These are matte, these are regular, and they're two different brands, Manicure and Toho. To make it easy on myself, I decided to make the spacer component with one color of the 8/0s and one color of the 15/0s. So this is what the spacer component is going to look like. My thread, I'm using this 2mm nylon thread. It is transparent. It's kind of hard to see, so when I get ready to teach the beaded bead component, I'm going to use a different color thread. But this is what I'm using because you don't want any colors of threads to show between these seed beads when you're wearing. You just want to have a clear coating here. I'm using my 0.7mm Stretch Magic. I will be using my nippers. I will be using a beading needle. It doesn't matter the size. And I'm using my XX large bead mat station. And I'll put the description of that below. And other than that, you just need some patience. Also, if you want to add like an 8mm bead or something like that, you could do that. You don't have to make all of these beaded beads, but that is your design decision. So if you still want to hang around and make this project, I'm gonna choose a color to begin with, and we'll make our beaded bead to get started. Actually, I think we're going to make our spacer component first. Yes, we'll make our spacer component first, and then after that we'll make the beaded bead. All right, so I'll see you in a minute. I'm using my black 8/0 seed beads to make my spacer components, and I'm going to string on 5 of these seed beads and pull my thread down and tie these beads into a circle. And just leave about maybe 3 inches of tail for holding on to, because we're not going to do anything with it. We're just going to cut that tail off. All right, now, and while we're here, once here, we will pass our needle through one of the seed beads and just try not to pull the knot into the seed beads. I mean, I don't think it's going to harm it at all because these are 8/0s, but try not to. And I'm going to pass, and I'm using my my matte galvanized silver seed bead for this component. So I'm going to pick up one of my 15-0s and pass my needle into the next 15-0 all the way around. Pick up one, pass through the next, pick up one 15-0 and pass through the next. All the way around. And then go ahead and reinforce that whole circle there. And I went through the first 15-0 that I added. That's the second one. Third, fourth, the fifth, and you have to be, and I'm going to keep going just past a couple more so that I can be so I can reposition, so that I can prepare for the next unit. So I'm just gonna, you have to be coming out of an 8/0 seed bead to make the next unit, which is going to be just a regular right angle weave. So you string on 3 of my seed beads here, the 8/0s, pass my needle back through the one that I was exiting and reinforce this. And back in here, and then come to the top seed bead, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add 4 of the 8/0s and make a circle. Just come back into that one. And I'm going to just face my work this way. And the tail is really getting in the way now. So, and I don't need it. So I'm just going to nip that off and pass my needle into the next 8/0 seed bead here. And then I'm going to add my 15/0s. Pick up a 15/0 and pass my needle into the next 8/0 and all the way around. And the last one, and then we're going to reinforce this whole unit, including the 15/0s, like we did the first unit. Well, my goodness, look at this, I didn't even pay attention. I got my beads all caught up there. There you go. And this is going to be our spacer component. You don't have to use contrasting colors like this when you do your spacer component. You can use the same color if you want. I liked the way that looked, so I kept going with it. All right. Okay, I have now reinforced. All right. Okay, there you go. I've reinforced now this whole unit, and I'm going to tie it off. I'm just going to pass through another, and I'm going to make my knot in between the 8/0 and the 15/0. So my thread is exiting here between these two. I'm just going to pass my needle under the two beads, and if you have to position them to get the knot where you need it to be, you do that. Okay, so I have pulled up a loop, and I'm going to pass my needle through that loop twice. I know this could be hard to see because of this nylon thread, this clear transparent nylon thread, I'm sorry. However, you won't see any thread when you you won't see the thread when you make your components. Okay, so now just pass the needle through the next couple of beads here. And pop your knot someplace in there if you can, and then nip off your thread. And that's it. That's it for the spacer component. And make as many of them as you want. You're going to need at least 3, but I'm not quite sure how many I'm going to make, but I'm only using one color of my 8/0s to make the spacer components. So you can do however many in whatever color you want. I'm just using the one color because it has a striking contrast when you put all the other colors together. All right, we're going to make our beaded bead, and even though I'm using my clear monofilament to make all of the components, I want to use this red thread here so that I can teach you how to do this. So we're going to begin by stringing on 5 of our 8/0 seed beads, and I'm going to just move these 15/0s out of the way for now. I'm going to I have my 5 seed beads, and I'm going to bring them down and leave about 3.5 to 4 inches of tail and tie these in a knot. And we're gonna keep the tail on because we're going to tie the threads together, the working thread and the tail thread together when we're done making our beaded bead. So now I'm going to pass my needle into the next seed bead and tighten down my knot just to make sure that it's tight. And I want to make sure that the knot is not inside the bead. So from here now, my thread exiting here and our knot tight, I'm going to string on. Okay, so let's go back for a second. We're doing the base 5 prismatic right angle weave. That means that I'm going to have 5 walls, but the number of points for my walls remains the same. So each wall is going to have 4 points. So I'm starting here, my thread is exiting here. I'm going to string on 3 of my 8/0 seed beads because I already have the 4th one here, or the first one, however you look at it. I'm going to pass my needle back into the rear of that seed bead where I was exiting, and it looks like this. And you can't get confused with what's your base and what's your wall, because your base has 5 beads and your wall has 4 beads. So now we're going to reinforce this unit by passing back through the 3 beads that I added plus the 1 single bead that was there on the base 5 unit. So this is the 4 for that wall. I'm going to advance my needle forward, and my forward is to move left And once there, I'm going to string on 2 of my 8/0s. I'm going to pass my needle here back into these 2 seed beads. So you can see on the needle I've got 4 seed beads. So I'm just going to pull my thread, and I'm going to reinforce that unit by going back into these 2 and into these 2, and that's the 4 for the side. Then I advance my needle forward by passing through that next seed bead. This is what it looks like. Now once here, I'm going to string on 2 seed beads because I already have 2 for my side, and I'm going to pass my needle back into these 2. And I'm going to reinforce the side by going into those 2 and these 2. So that's the 4 for the side, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to advance my needle into this seed bead here, and you know you're getting close because the tail thread is there. So now I'm going to string on my 2 seed beads, and I'm going to pass my needle into these 2 seed beads here. And the beaded bead is trying to cup up, which is what you want. So right now I have to reinforce the side by going through these 4 seed beads that are for the side, those 2 and these 2. And then now I'm here at the 5th seed bead. Here's my tail. I'm going to move it to the back, and I'm going to position myself where I need to be. And I already have 3 beads. I have these 3 beads here that I need for the 5th wall, but I have to position myself by advancing through this seed bead here and this one. Then I'm going to string on 1 of my 8/0s, and I'm going to pass my needle back into these 3 seed beads, and I'm going to pull my thread, and I'm going to use my dexterity, my thumb and my forefinger, and to pull the thread here. And now you see I've got my walls. I have all 5 of my walls, and the only thing I have to do now is reinforce, is to connect the 5 beads that are on the top. And you know that these are the correct ones because they have a vertical hole orientation. So my thread, first off, let's reinforce. I want to reinforce that 5th wall that I just made by going into that bead down here into this one, back over, and you know you're going in the right direction because your tail thread's there, into this bead, and then back up. Of course my tail thread wants to be in the party. Move them out of the way here, and then back up here. Now this was the side. Now what we have to do now again is to connect the 5 beads that are on the top. So my my working thread is exiting this seed bead here in the horizontal, yes, this way. And then I'm just going to pass my needle into these 5 seed beads on the top that have the vertical hole orientation. So that's 2, 3, 4, okay, 4 and 5. And then you have to continue advancing the needle 1 more place, because when you came out of this hole here, you went directly in here. That means these 2 beads, the one where my thread is exiting and the one where I started, those are not connected. So you have to pass through that final seed bead there. Now that is your 5 walls, and your 5 base and your 5 top. What we're going to do now is string on a size 15-0 and pass it through the next 8-0. String on a 15-0, pass it through the next 8-0. Just do that all the way around. And once you get your 5 15-0s on, I'm going to reinforce that entire top, including going through the 15s. So that's the first one. 2. I'm counting the 15s. I'm not skipping anything. I'm just counting the 15s. That's 3. And 5. And what we're going to do is make our way back to the bottom side where we started, but in order to do that, we have to be exiting a size an 8-0. Now we're going to continue passing our needle down this way, and then we're going to move to our right. We're going to pass our needle this way into the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the top. We're going to string on a 15-0 and put a 15-0 between each of the 8-0s and reinforce the connection, and then tie in a knot. So I'm not going to make you watch me do this, but we will tie off together, and then we'll continue from there. I reinforced all of my beads, and now my tail thread and my working thread have met. So I'm going to tie a knot there, and make sure that your knot sits between that 8-0 and the 15-0, and finish your knot. And once you do that, you advance your needle through a few more beads. So I'm going to pass my 8-0, 15-0, and an 8-0, and another 15-0. And I'm going to make sure that the knot that I made with the 2 threads is pulled tightly and into the 8-0 seed bead. And you can hear it pop into the 8-0 seed bead. And then once you do that, you just nip your threads off, and there you have it, your beaded bead ready for stringing. Okay. So I was a little tongue-tied when I was making that last component, and I don't know, I was a little verklempt, and I kept calling the hole orientations by the wrong hole orientation. So let's look at this component that I'm working on. I'm sorry, the beaded bead that I'm working on. Right now, I'm holding this up, and it's the beaded bead is cupped. I have all the parts added, but it's not connected. So that means that I have reinforced everything, and I'm coming out of this seed bead here. This is my working thread is exiting this seed bead here, and you see it right here. So when I'm holding this way, when I hold it so that you can see the cup on top, this is my vertical hole orientation. That means that I can, the hole is sitting, it is like it would be sitting flat on the surface. So if it's sitting flat on the surface, it's my vertical hole orientation. But if it's standing on its side like this, now that's my horizontal hole orientation, because that's the way that I place the needle through it. So right now, I have my working thread exiting this vertical hole orientation, and I need to attach the 5 beads that are on the top. And those beads have a horizontal hole orientation. They're sitting up on their sides. So I need to go into the 5 of them. So I'm starting by going into these 2. Of course, I didn't want to do that. I'm going into these 2 and get my tail out of there. And then these 2. Okay, now that I'm not finger tied, and then I'm going to go back into these 2. This is the 5th seed bead here, and this is the first one that I entered from that vertical hole orientation. So you have to really go through the 6 beads so that you can tighten them up. So I'm going to pull here, and then you see I have my top with the 5 seed beads, and if I turn it this way, each of my sides has 4 posts. So I have 5 walls and they have 4 posts, and I have to just reinforce this top and add my 15 O's on the top and bottom and tie off the thread, and I'll be done with this beaded bead. So I just wanted to clear up that my horizontal and vertical hole orientations. So I've been a little busy making my beaded beads and my spacer components. I've got several here, and I decided that I was going to place a black bead between the colors and then separate them with my spacers. So this is what I'm working with. This is how I decided to do mine. You don't have to do the same thing. My daughter says that I'm extra, so you can make your do it any way you want. You can even use 8mm beads. You don't have to make any of these beaded beads. I just wanted to do the double, and this is pretty unique. So I'm about to cut off my stretch wire and get everything together for stringing, and I'm gonna cut 2 11-inch pieces of my stretch cord, and I'm gonna place these beaded beads on my stretch cord in the formation that I want them, and then I will show you how to tie off. I cut 2 strips of my stretch wire, and I stretched them out for maximum performance. And then on one of the strips, I strung my beaded beads and my spacers like this. Let's see. Yeah, this is better view. Yep, I strung them all just like this. And I've got 8 spacers, and between the spacers I have my colors that I chose to use, and now I'm going to tie. So just to make sure that these beads are sitting in the center of the stretch wire, I'm just going to double tie here. And pull that, and we're going to do it again. And just pull it so that there's no more slack left in there. And the third time. Just tighten down just to make sure it's where you want it to be, and just stretch your cord all the way out so that there's no stretch left. And I believe that that will make that stretch cord adhere to itself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other piece of my strip of my stretch cord, and I'm going to start in a different location than I have started here. So what I mean by that is I'll run my stretch cord through one of these over here. The other one I tied here. I don't want to be in the same place tying knots. So I'll start here, and I'll run my stretch cord in here in this side, and then I'll string my beads. I'll coordinate my beads. I'll put the green here and just keep going around the green, the black, and the green, and then go through the spacer. And when you get done stringing all of those, then you will just tie off like we did over here, and then cut your stretch cords. And when I finish doing all that, I'll be back to show you my finished project. I've tied my knots and I've cut my cord, and my project is done. And it's pretty unique, it's pretty colorful, it's kind of extra, as my daughter says, but I like it. And if you stayed with me to make this project, thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time.